Squid Game is one of Netflix's most popular TV shows, filled with games that are meticulous in design and ruthlessly brutal. The show's concept seems detached from reality, but what if it was based on real suffering? Squid Game may look like fiction, but the desperation behind it, that part is real. And once you understand the truth, you realize that this isn't just entertainment. When Squid Game was released in 2021, it became a global phenomenon. But creator Hwang Dong-hyuk didn't just imagine this story. He was inspired by real economic struggles in South Korea. And this video argues that Squid Game both exposes inequality and turns real suffering into entertainment. And that tension is exactly what makes this show so powerful. Through its characters, storyline, and even symbolism, the show reflects real life labor struggles and forces viewers to confront uncomfortable truths about capitalism and survival in today's society. For years, Korea's poverty rate has remained high. In fact, 1 out of 6 Koreans are below the poverty line. Many Koreans work in unfavorable work conditions out of pure desperation, which mirrors the desperation of the characters in the show. Although they could leave the games, they all chose to stay, knowing what could happen, knowing that their lives are in danger, just for that economic compensation. The show wants you to think about what happens in the real world through the fictional. But what exactly is the real world connection? Well, in 2009, South Korea experienced the Ssangyong Motor protest. After financial struggles, the Ssangyong Motor Company was taken over by banks and private investors, leaving over 2,600 workers, which is about 40% of the workforce, to be laid off. And in response, more than 900 workers occupied a factory in protest for 77 days. But the protest was anything but peaceful. As the days passed, the strike turned violent between police and strikers, with police being armed with tear gas, rubber bullets, and even tasers, leaving the strikers to fight back with what they had, which were makeshift weapons like slingshots and steel pipes. What's even worse is that the entire event was broadcast to the public, turning their struggle into a spectacle, just another thing that some people watched. Even after the strike ended, after a deal was struck between the strikers' union and Sangyong's management, the suffering didn't stop, as some workers faced consequences just for being a part of the strike. These consequences were in the form of being blackballed from employment from other large Korean companies, and even being sued by local police and the Ssangyong Motor Company, using the civil courts for damages to the company itself. The union members face damage fines of approximately $9 million, with a deferred interest to increase the fine by 620,000 won per day. This meant that union members couldn't find a job and faced extreme financial debt as they had no money to pay the fine, leaving their wages and assets to be seized by the courts. And as anyone can imagine, the emotional toll was devastating to the point where between 2009 and 2018, 43 workers and family members died by suicide and stress-related issues. This shows that the strike wasn't just an economic issue, it was a human crisis. Now look at Squid Game again. The main character Jiun worked at an automobile company called Dragon Motor, which is sort of a subtle reference to Ssangyong, as Ssangyong means double dragons in English. Now, similar to the Ssangyong factory, Jiun and other workers went on strike, which ended in a violent conflict with the police seen in Season 1, Episode 5 of Squid Game, where suddenly we see a flashback from Jiun's eyes, where he saw workers protesting the layoffs at the Dragon Motor Company, and even an individual facing police brutality right in front of his eyes. That allows viewers to understand that he may have PTSD and trauma, much like the workers from the Ssangyong Company might have had. And yet another connection to the protest from the show can be seen through the games, where the characters, like the workers in real life, are willing to do anything if it ensures their survival, even if it meant suffering. Specifically, in red light, green light, players are killed unknowingly, similar to how workers can lose everything overnight if they don't obey the rules. In tug of war, survival depends on teamwork, but only at the expense of others. And in the Marbles episode, players must betray someone they trust to stay alive, whether it be lying, cheating, or luck. All of these are just a reflection on how workers are pushed into situations where survival meant competing, betraying, and sacrificing others. Even the union leader Lee Chung-kun said that the show reflects the emotional stages of the strike that he experienced in real life, where people were forced into these life or death situations. So, what exactly was Squid Game trying to say? On one hand, it raises global awareness, where millions of viewers are exposed to issues like economic inequality and debt and work exploitation. But at the same time, it turns real suffering into something people binge watch. Even Lee Chung-kyun, the same union leader, said he felt empty and frustrated as the collective trauma, similar to his own, had been turned into entertainment yet again. But Squid Game doesn't just criticize exploitation, it exists within a system that profits from it. Its global success shows how audiences are drawn to stories of survival under extreme inequality because it reflects real fears in the modern society. So, does Squid Game do more good or harm? In the end, it does both. But it can do more good if we choose to see it as more than entertainment, where we recognize the real story behind it. It becomes a call to empathy. So the next time you watch Squid Game, ask yourself, are you just watching the game or witnessing reality?